Vouch for it. And he's going to introduce and bring on stage our guests.
Thank you so much. Really privileged to be here, actually, especially after what we saw right now. A big round of applause to Nikhil Advani, Star Plus, and MA Entertainment. What a fantastic first episode. I want to start by introducing him. I actually truly believe that Nikhil Advani is in one of India's most eclectic and obviously incredibly prolific directors. He's done rom-coms with Kal Ho Na Ho and Salam Namaste, an action comedy with Chandni Chowk to China, a sports drama with Patiala House, an animation film Delhi Safari, a thriller D-Day, romantic dramas Hero and Patiala House, Hero and Kati Patti, and now he's helmed over 100 episodes of the official remake of Hathu film as POW. From his production house MA Entertainment, which, by the way, if you guys do not know, is one of the producers behind one of the biggest hits of this year, Airlift. So, can we please call upon writer, directors, and obviously, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai star cameo, Nikhil Advani. Please, Nikhil, please have a seat. Our next panelist is someone whose bio is incredibly powerful. Gaurav Banerjee's journey in content began as a journalist in Aaj Tak in 2000, and then he quickly rose through the ranks, launching Star Ananda, Bengal's agenda-setting news channel, and then he anchored Star News primetime show Satyamev Jayate, not the Amir Khan one, obviously. He moved to Star India in 2008, first as a curator of regional channels, then the content strategy head of Star Plus, where he was responsible for Sasural Genda Fool and Diyar Bati Hum, which of course, as we all know, are huge TRP spinners. He became general manager of Star Plus in 2013, strengthening its business and content and taking it to the #1 channel in India. Join us here. Our next panelist, originally from Israel, Gideon Raff, moved to Los Angeles in 2003 to study film direction. After making 2 films, a thriller, The Killing Floor, and a horror film, Train, in the US, Gideon's biggest and most important success went on to win several awards, including a Primetime Emmy for him for outstanding direction. It resurrected Matthew McConaughey's career and showed the world that television is and can perhaps always be, better or perhaps just as good as film. His film after that, the much acclaimed Beast of No Nation, was another landmark because it released simultaneously in theaters and on Netflix, empowered. I want to start by asking this panel a question that I've always wondered. When writers, screenwriters, and filmmakers are growing up, or at least they're amateur and aspiring filmmakers and screenwriters, they're not imagining themselves to be directing television one day. No one's growing up thinking, I want to do television. But then, of course, look what's happening. As Anu mentioned, in the last 4 or 5 years, the biggest talking points of every year has been television. From Breaking Bad to Transparent to Mad Men to Narcos to, Game of Thrones, and of course, right now, it's Stranger Things. And even in terms of filmmakers, from David Lynch to Steven Soderbergh to Woody Allen, everyone's internationally getting down to television. Nikhil Advani's now obviously done POW. Anurag Kashyap did Yudh. Abhinay Deo has done 24. Anurag Basu has done a Rabindranath Tagore series. Filmmakers are coming in droves to multi-episode storytelling. I just want opening comments from the panel. Why do you think this is happening? Why has television become so important all of a sudden? We can start with Carrie. Yeah.
I don't know worldwide why that might be happening. In the United States, I think there's been probably a dearth of mid-range budgeted dramatic stories, and I feel like television has filled that niche, and therefore people who are attracted to those kinds of stories or people who want to tell long-form stories finally get an opportunity to do so in television. I wanted to do long-form, especially after Jane Eyre, because it's a 700-plus page novel that we had to compress into less than 2 hours. And the idea of having the space to sit with characters for 8 hours was very appealing to me. So that was my draw.
It also seems like there is a lack of room for adult stories told in cinema nowadays. It's harder and harder to tell an R-rated story in cinema. So I think a lot of those stories have come to television, and together with their creators, have found that executives are more, open to telling serialized, finite stories on television.
Yeah, I actually believe that TV is the new novel, and therefore a lot of stories which need to play out over a certain length of time, where graphs need to be longer, are only possible on TV. And second, I think television, more than any other medium, remains a writer, director, creative person's medium. Because television audiences are larger and they're more forgiving and they give more and more opportunities to get our craft right. Whereas in, I think, the film business, it's becoming more and more about the first day, the first look, and therefore it's gone into perhaps a marketeer's domain. So what's the name of your film, who stars in it, and all of that seems to decide much more than what's the story you want to tell. And fundamentally, in our country, television remains about the big reach that TV has. The fact that we can seriously, I mean, the number of people watching television in our country is equal to the population of all of Europe. And so I think that's a huge reason that appeals to a lot of storytellers, that here's a really big audience that is going to tune in and be influenced by their craft, and you have the power to get into their drawing rooms every day. And second, it's not a medium that is dominated by having, you know, the name of your show, and by having or not having a star that's going to determine or change anything. So it doesn't matter. In India, we've had really big film stars at the top of a TV show, and they've struggled to sort of get audiences in because the stories have a problem. And we have people who are first-time actors. You mentioned a couple of shows that I've had the privilege to work on, and they did really well. There were people who were just good actors, and none of them were stars, and it didn't seem to matter to any of these audiences.
I just got a chance to work, so just being very. No, honestly speaking, it's a combination of what all the three other panelists have said. In the sense, I approached with a lot of skepticism when Star approached me after. I mean, they like D-Day, right? And it became very difficult. It was very difficult for me to make D-Day. And post D-Day, everybody said that why don't you make D-Day Part 2? You know, so yeah, you had a channel, the biggest channel in the country, saying that we want to do a show like very much in this space. And I said, but you guys have Nagins and these kind of, they don't have that. So I said, why don't we just try, I said, I will write something, let's see what happens. And then they came to me with Hatufim, and I was totally, I said, you want to make this? You really want to try and make this? I said, yeah, let's give it a shot. I mean, that's why we're here. I mean, it's been an eye-opener for me at every step of the way. Every time I thought this, I'm going to get a call from Gaurav saying that you got to change this, you got to do this, you got to make this change.
I'll still make that call.
Yeah, I haven't got it. I mean, we've got a stellar star cast in the show. I mean, not like Gaurav said, from Sandhya to Manish to Satyadeep to, they are actors we've got, to be able to work with actors, be able to work with a superb writing team. Why would you not come to television? Why would you not? I mean, if this is what we can, if we can allowed to do this, then please, let's all migrate to television.
I want to take up all the points, in fact, that you guys have mentioned, but I'll start actually with the most controversial, only because Kerry mentioned it upfront. Is television becoming important because film is declining, so to speak? Because look what's happening internationally, even in India. It's either big budget filmmaking that we are seeing everywhere. It's blockbuster cinema that people are going and paying for, or small independent films which have limited releases and then of course come on VOD directly. Mid-budget filmmaking is actually just going away completely. And actually the directors that you see internationally who are actually going to television are these guys who broke out because of their mid-budget films, whether it's a Steven Soderbergh or Cameron Crowe. All of these are actually big names who started in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s with outstanding films, which today may not even see the light of the day because no one's going to be putting money across to them. So is that what's really happening? Are filmmakers actually getting more interested in television because film is not giving rise to their passion projects? It's not suitable anymore for the stuff they really want to do? It's open to the panel.
Yes, I am. You said grown-up filmmaking. So I'm assuming you mean non-comic book films.
Yes.
Okay. not that I wouldn't ever do a comic book movie, but I think my impulse is to write dramas mainly. So Beast of No Nation was a weird sort of hybrid, as you mentioned, because I think a lot of people consider it a television film, even though it was made for and finished to be a theatrical film. Most people experienced it on Netflix or pirated, where Netflix didn't exist, and very few people saw it in the cinema, which is. I think you were kind of also saying in terms of what it matters the first day performance and per screen averages and what's the drop off for the next weekend if it's going to exist any longer in the cinema. So as a filmmaker spending years or on a project, you want as many people to see it as possible. So there's also a higher chance that in television you're going to have a far larger audience and a longer reach and a much longer period of time in which they can consume it in the way it's meant to be consumed.
When you did True Detective, when you were actually taking up the project, you had been a film director, and then you decided to do television. And what typically happens in American television, if people don't know, it's generally a director directing an episode, or perhaps 2 or 3 episodes, and there are multiple directors over a season. But you chose to direct an entire season of True Detective together. So what was your actual motivation to come to television in the first place when you had been a film director, who was an awarded film director for that matter?
Someone once told me the money was in television. I was still paying off my student loans. Also, it was what I said about doing Jane Eyre and wanting to be able to spend more time exploring a character and all their nuances and differences. Whereas in a film, tone and the level of character depth is going to be limited by the length of time. And especially tone, you can't really shift it within 2 hours, except for somehow the Koreans can do it. And but otherwise, you're kind of limited to this kind of one note, oftentimes in a film. And I think long format gives you much more room to play. The concept behind True Detective, I don't think was necessarily original, even though, what I mean in terms of one director. Even though some people credit it as that. But for example, oh god, I can't believe I'm spacing on his name. Tom Hooper did all of John Adam, and I don't think for Twin Peaks there was multiple directors in Twin Peaks, but it was still a David Lynch creation. But there were other series where I think there was one director, and what appealed to me was that I was going to be able to do that and have 8 hours. I think in terms of logistics, networks don't actually prefer that because it takes longer to finish the episodes because you don't have multiple people completing them and getting them out on the air within. Like some shows don't even finish shooting before they're on the air, and you can't do that with one director.
Nikhil, do you want to answer that as well? As a filmmaker, you just mentioned D-Day was actually very difficult for you to do. Having done, having made a forte of making romantic dramas or dramas for that matter, the moment you want to do a thriller, people will say, "Arey, ye to, he's a romantic director, why should he make a thriller?" So is that one of the reasons why you thought, because this is 22 hours, I read, this is 22 hours of a film that you're doing, that's, 10 films, at least. So why did you decide?
It's 126 episodes. And it's 22 films. If you just divide it from, don't take the films I've made because I've made very long films also like Salami Ishq. So just taking an average film and do the mathematics, it's like 22 films. And like I was telling somebody today only that you take a shot on one day and you get a great shot with Sandhya Pridul on day one and you say, oh my God, I've got 100 days to go. And I've got 100 of these shots, sequences that I need to shoot. So, but I think that what Carrie said is very important as somebody who is committed to the project. In the sense, I would not have done POW if I was told only that, you come in and do the first episode and then go out. And I wouldn't do that. Because somewhere or the other, I think that what we as filmmakers are committed to do is we want to see, put our stamp over there. Right now, there's a shot, I don't think Harry saw the pilot, but there's a shot in POW when the car is traveling and there's a helicam shot, and I remember while taking it I kept saying True Detective, True Detective. This is a True Detective shot. So when you see True Detective, you say, oh my God, just those shots of the cars on the bayou, and it's brilliant. That was a huge, which they tried to do in season 2.
Meanwhile, I was thinking No Country for Old Men, No Country for Old Men, No Country for Old Men.
Gideon, you also started in film. You made 2 films, but your success, the biggest success that you've had, came out of interestingly a series in Israel that is being adapted now all over the world.
Which he directed everything.
Yeah, which you directed as well, and now it's being adapted all over the world. So, but was it never a case of, and which is what I want to understand. I mean, of course, TV is a lot more prestigious right now, but at the time when you were doing it, was it ever something for you that I'm sacrificing and going to television, or I'm sort of.
No, not really. I was never a snob about television. I grew up on television, so it's true that when series like Sopranos and Oz came out, it allowed for deeper exploration of characters on television and all of that. But I was just happy to tell a story, honestly. The reason I moved to LA to begin with to study at the AFI was because I couldn't break into the industry in Israel. And after the 2 features, I did it the other way. After doing 2 features in Hollywood, I finally got a break in Israel. So I could tell my story on television there. Yeah.
Someone mentioned over here the reach that television offers. I actually have a theory. I know there's this.
Not someone, network mentioned it.
Well, of course, the network mentioned it. Now, I actually want to, talk about that as well, because I have a theory. There's this film producer. There's a television producer called Ekta Kapoor here. Critics have issues with her, but I genuinely believe what she's done before Ekta Kapoor came to television. The Indian woman did not have the remote control. The Indian woman was a homemaker, and the remote was controlled by the man of the house, for watching news and cricket matches. When Ekta Kapoor serials came on and had women as the protagonists, the remote actually traveled back to the women again, which sort of gave them. It's interesting. The content of we're not talking about the content of what her shows were, but it gave confidence to the conditioned Indian woman to sort of take the remote control in her hand. So some of it empowered women across India. And I genuinely believe that. And the fact is, I think our generation is a lot more liberal, in India at least, because of Friends. I think Friends has done so much for opening and broadening the minds of young children who've been brought up on its diet. And I think a lot of that is happening. So is television important because it probably genuinely has the potential of changing the environment around you versus a film? I mean, a film, of course, can have a impact, but with the reach the television offers, the number of eyeballs it can get, can it actually change the world?
Yeah, if I may answer that. I think first let me begin by adding to what you just said about the impact that my friend Ekta Kapoor has had on our country. I think, and let me not use data that I can manufacture from TAM or BARC or whatever. Let me tell you a piece of academic work that has been done outside of this country by 2 scholars who work for the University of Chicago. And these 2 studies available on Google, so you can just type University of Chicago study on Indian television, it'll show up. So what these 2 professors did was they went to rural India and they did some serious research work in the early years of satellite television, which is when the Ekta shows on Star Plus were at their prime, right, at their peak. She was making roughly 47 of the top 50 shows on TV. And this is exactly what was happening in all those households. So there were women who were taking charge of their destiny for the first time. So here were women who were reporting that as they started watching these shows over a period of time, their say in the most important decisions that got taken at home, whether, which groom was the daughter in the house going to get married to? What is the right age for marriage? Till what point should the girl study? All of those questions were questions on which she had been voiceless, and she found her voice because somewhere that change was triggered by the shows that we were showing and that Ekta was making for us. I think, a lot of it, the commentary on television, and I'm sure I'm going to raise some hackles here when I say this, has been snobbish and elitist. I think, this is people who have the privilege of being exposed to the finest education in this country, people who have had the benefit of actually living with television for 30 years and more, and people who have the great opportunity of following the work that people like the 2 gentlemen here on my right have done, that exposes you to a higher consciousness. For a large part of our country, we're talking to Bharat and not to India. And for most of them, their experiences with television are as recent as the last 5 to 10 years. And therefore, in those households is where the real battle for mind space and for control of destiny is happening. And that's where storytellers like Ekta, like the people who made Diyar Bati Hum, have made a real telling difference to shaping the destiny of our country. I think there's been a lot of comment on Nagin and Brahma Rakshas, and neither of those shows I've had anything to do with, and they're not on my network. But I'd like to say this, I don't honestly, I think nobody's night's sleep has been hit more than mine with the enormous success that these shows have had. But I want to say this: there is no, if you want to go and tell a fantasy story, right, which is around snakes and the magical powers that snakes have, there's no problem with that, right? I mean, in the West, there's Twilight, and for heaven's sake, there's Game of Thrones. And there is a huge dimension on that all of us watch, which is totally fine. So I think I do have a problem with a lot of regressive content that happens. But that doesn't happen on TV screens alone. That happens on our news channels. That happens on a lot of the movies that get made in this country and in Hindi and in various other languages. So I think a lot of this discourse should really move away from medium to the specifics of stories. And I think in recognizing that and in understanding the power of what has been unleashed in this country, because this is something that is truly unique to our country and where we are today. Because let's face it, where literacy levels are in our country, right, there is no other way of shaping public consciousness which is more powerful than the reach of television. And when it is either a Nikhil Advani or an Amir Khan or a Ramesh Sippy before that, when I was growing up, right, Ramesh Sippy made Bunyad. These are people who are really making a very, very big contribution in changing the discourse.
Carry the impact of True Detective. Now again, I don't think Matthew McConaughey got his Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club. I think he got this Oscar for True Detective because he became such a huge phenomenon in the United States after True Detective that as a result of that, the buzz for Oscar goers was so immense that they could not have awarded any other actor at that time. Now, of course, that's an individual impact of a show like True Detective, and of course, it's launched you into public consciousness for various reasons as well. But impact in terms of the audience impact, is there something that you can recall? Have you seen us? You try to say a lot of things with the show, but did it reach audiences? Did you see that kind of impact?
I either had the advantage or disadvantage of being in Ghana during that entire time. So I completely missed the cultural phenomenon other than the memes that my agent would send me every now and then.
You didn't see the Joe McHale skit?
Which one?
The Joe McHale one.
Which one was that
Oh,
one?
it's so
Is that
funny.
the
I'll
guy?
show you afterwards.
Is that like was it the kids like the AT&T commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was good. So that was fun, but I mean, yeah, I don't know.
See, you are, the reason I'm asking again is now you have had a lot of films in development ever since Beast of No Nation. But the project, if I'm not wrong, the project that you've chosen to do next again is a TV show with Jonah Hill and Emma Stone, Maniac. So you're going back to television. So is it because of the impact that the show had? What is the reason for that?
I just really wanted to work with Emma and Jonah, so we just kind of thought maybe we should do a show. It all started like one night. I was having a drink with Emma, and I said I really want to do a show with you. And then she said I always want to do one with Jonah. So then we went to Jonah's house and had some wine, and then we all agreed to do a show. So.
But why the show versus a film? That's the question.
Oh. I think because we started talking about a show and we just kind of stuck with it.
Gideon, because we are talking about reach and impact, now Homeland season 1, which is, again, we also spoken about character. Homeland in season 1 wasn't just a show about a terror attack or a terrorist who's people, a prisoner of war in a sense, who's been let loose. It was a show about two broken people. It was a show about a PTSD-ridden POW and a bipolar agent. And as it's progressed, it's obviously just turned into a conventional thriller again. But did you see, at least in the initial seasons when we were seeing Brody's story, did you see people having, did PTSD or bipolar disorder, did that come into the conversation according to you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the idea of these people coming back came from an extensive research I did with former prisoners of war. There are about 1,200 of them living in Israel, and I met many of them and their families and their wives and their children, the doctors they take care of, and the psychiatrists. So all that research came into prisoners of war, and then that found its way into Brody's damage. You know, Carrie's bipolar disorder, and I'm allowing myself to say it was a brilliant thing because it didn't come from me, but that allowed for a kind of a very special viewing experience because you had a very unreliable narrator. You had no idea if she thinks Brody is a terrorist because she's right or because she's off her meds, and she's the lead of the show, which was very special, I thought. So yeah, the PTSD came from a lot of research, and people who come back from that horrific experience from captivity don't really get over it from what I've learned. So I wanted to convey that.
I think it's both an advantage of television, as you guys have mentioned, and as well as a disadvantage. The fact that you are able to, you know, have a character breakdown over a several episode arc or several season arc, but after a point in time, doesn't it get old? Now, what has happened with Homeland, since you're talking about that, is that Brody had to, I mean, I don't know, spoiler alert, he had to go away, and then there's another story.
Well, if
that
they
started.
don't know that by now.
Yeah, well, yes, another character had to take over. And, you know, outside of sitcoms for that matter, characters on television, you know, after a point of time, how much more can you explore them? You know, so is it fair thing to say? I mean, it's a confusion. Is there that character is immensely well developed on television, but after a point of time, how much more can an audience take? So how do you grapple with that?
Well, I think you have to reinvent the series. You have to reignite it. I think Homeland did that wonderfully. And it's true, though. It used to be that in television the characters didn't change, so you can continue and continue and continue. But now more and more you see characters that change, even on big network shows, that they do explore the arc of the character.
Isn't that also just the nature of structure, like a syndicatable show, a situation, say like Friends? Well, that did have arcs though too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when they're on a break, you know, one's screwing around, we're on a break, you know, there's like stuff to build on. But like Cheers, for example,
Yeah.
which, did they have Cheers here?
Yes. Did it?
You know, you could watch that in any order, and it's fine. So the characters had to kind of stay the same, didn't they?
Yeah. But now more and more you see serialized show, the characters do change, even on network. I just directed an episode of Quantico, which is a very highly serialized show, and you see that things are changing, and you know, the writers and producers are reinventing every week to make sure that you don't get bored.
Okay, this has nothing to do with the panel, but did you have fun directing Priyanka?
I did. She's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Nikhil, 100 episodes. You know, you have set up a character. You have set up multiple characters actually in the first episode. How do you ensure that people are interested in them for 126 episodes? It's a finite series, but it's still a very long series.
It's an answer I can give you only after it finishes. I don't know. For me, it's a discovery every day. I thought it's going to be a piece of cake. I've done such big films. What's doing a show? It's nothing. Come on, I'll just go and do a show, right? But every single day has been an eye opener for me because it's quite a task in the sense to be able to. But I mean, you have to surround yourself. The answer that you're looking for is you have to surround yourself with a great writing team. You have to have a great writing team. People who are constantly challenging you and throwing you and not telling you, yeah, yes, you're great and you've done Kalo now and you've done this film or whatever. You have to. They're constantly. They're there. They're fighting with me all the time, and they're all the time. So you have to. I think television is a writer's medium. It's a big writing medium, and if you don't have that support system, you can't do what you have to do, right? In the sense, because you're right. So the characters have to keep reinventing, even within 126 episodes. I don't know how people do it in shows that 10 years and 12 years and 13 years, but even in 126 episodes, we've reached episode number 60. And we say, okay, now what's going to happen with Sandhya's character? What's going to happen with this? Where is she going? How is she going? Oh, no, she can't do that. Why can't she do that? But what, so you have to keep talking, and you have to keep reinventing. That's the only way of, I think.
See, that's actually the question that I was going to ask, because you have to, is what you've said, because like Carrie, I read in an interview that you have given long ago about how you would not have done it had it been any more than the 8 hours that you would. The reason that you're not doing a season 2 or a season 3 after that was because you had something to say that you believed you finished in this certain kind of hours and you didn't need more than that. So if they would have even wanted to continue the story of those characters beyond that first season, you would have said no, and that's the question that I'm actually trying to pose to everyone right here. At what time, how much can you say through the same characters? And isn't that a challenge that TV has? That in a film you have only a certain 2 to 3 hour period where you have to say so much, but a television show can be endless, depending on how many networks renew it. So how much networks renew it. So with this challenge, I mean, if you guys just want to talk about that.
I don't remember saying that, but that sounds like something I'd say. But like if someone had said like, well, Rust and Hart are going to become homosexual lovers and start a new detective agency for season 2, there's a whole new arc to explore there.
I'd watch it.
So, that was never presented to me. So,
But since for the same reason, I mean, you are doing television. I mean, you're doing film, and then you're coming down to television. And at what do you agree to? That okay, I will. How do you know that my character has 8 hours of content to give, or 8 hours of stuff to say? When there is no period, right? Like, is it just because it's 8 episodes long, or for that matter, how do you fill that in? How when you get into it for the first time?
oh, I thought by 7 or 8 they'd just be sitting in the car and not saying anything anymore. Like a long road trip. But we had a very specific genre for True Detective, which was a noir crime story. So we had one case to get through over 8 episodes, and I thought we had plenty of steps to go through in that amount of time and to be able to finish it. And one of the things that was very important to us was solving, or at least completing that story in that one season, and not using some sort of constructed red herring or false ending to lure people into a second season. The entire pitch to every network we went to was that this would be an anthology with a third act and an ending every season. And there's something satisfying about that, which is different than, say, another kind of serialized show, which I actually think it requires more creative gymnastics for the writers to figure out how to draw people in. It's actually much easier to finish a story.
Nikhil, because you were speaking about the same, so as you said, you had to reinvent. Is the 126 thing a curse or is it a benefit?
No, I think 126 is because also we have that much to say. I mean, if you see just the 2 seasons of Hatu film, what he's done in 2 seasons, and because I mean we've also changed the format of how to tell the story, right? In the sense, Hatu film is an hour-based long episode. We are 22 minutes, and we are 6 days a week. That's something that was one of the first conversations that Gaurav had with me, which was that we want, you go ahead and do it the way you want to do it, but let us, we know how to put it out. And it has to be 6 days a week. In this country, you need to be, it's like a drug, right? You need to come every single day and watch the same kind of thing. It's not a bad, drugs are not bad, so it's not, don't look so you have to keep watching it, right? So at 126 is where POW will end. At least my POW will end in 126. I mean, we've been talking about as writers, how do we stop the network from doing, we'll kill everybody off. Just everybody is gone. There's nobody else there. But no, the story, Gideon's story ends with us. In fact, it ends a little earlier. I had to call him up and tell him that, okay, I'm going to go a little ahead. What did you have in mind for season 3? And he was very kind to tell us, okay, this is what I wanted to do.
I'm so happy because I'm going to get to see the season 3 that I'm planning in the Indian television before I get to do it in the original show.
Gideon, doesn't happen with you when you're in the writer's room and you think that, okay, I have had everything I wanted to say through these characters, but the network wants to renew the show,
Honestly, it's such a, it's going to sound cheesy, but I truly believe this. It's such a privilege to be paid to do what we do. And if somebody wants another 10 hours, you don't go, eh. You know, at least it's such a privilege to do it. And if the audience is tired of it, the network's not going to go, let's continue anyway. So I think I would go on.
Gaurav, this is a question that is even especially relevant to you, right? Because see, what's happening in America is that the daytime soap opera is pretty much dead, you know, and even primetime soaps today are struggling, you know, because of a Netflix or Amazon or cable. You know, everyone's pretty much, all the audiences is cord cutting, as they say in America. But in India, you know, we still have dailies. POW is a daily, you know, and even when we have seasonal structures or weekend shows, they are still soapy to a certain extent. You know, I mean, this one was incredibly refreshing for that matter. But why is there such a gap between what is because interestingly, attention spans are declining, you know, across the world. People don't have the patience to watch something for so long. But in India, seems to be some sort of a gap in this. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, can I respond to that previous question also on why networks love torturing writers? Just a thing we do. No, actually, you know, so what is the network deciding on whose basis, on whose behalf is the network deciding or making that request? You know, on the basis of what we hear from fans, right? So I think whether it is the creative people on my left and my right, or somebody like myself, we are here to serve our fans. And if the belief is that, you know, a story, a character has really resonated and has touched a chord, and therefore our fans, people like you, people sitting at home, families, they would want to watch this person's journey, then it is our duty to go back to the creators and say, okay, you know what, there is some juice left here, we think. Do you have a creative idea? And if they do, we make something of it, right? Having said that, you know, I work for a channel which has periodically shut down top 10 shows. You know, we shut down a show called Bidai. It was the top rated show at that point in time. A month ago, we shut down the Aur Baati Hum. It was among the top rating shows when we decided on that. Fundamentally, not driven just by the urge of fans as represented by ratings, but because creatively we felt it wasn't going anywhere. We didn't really know what more to, you know, tell with those set of characters. So I think it's a good executives who have an ear to the ground and great creative people sitting together making some good choices is usually the magic of television. And having given this long answer, I've forgotten the question that you did ask me.
But that's usually the magic of any creative work. It's not only about television. And several times, I'm going to remind you later on, you said you come down to television. I don't think you should be coming down to television at all. I mean, come on.
At that time, because now, of course,
No,
television is amazing.
But 90210 was amazing.
We've grown. I mean, the whole
And
last
so was
year,
Bunyad.
I can count on my fingertips the number of times I've gone into a cinema hall and watched a film that I really wanted to go and watch, but the minute you see the trailer of Game of Thrones and you tweet about it, and I say, oh, the Game of Thrones trailer is out, right? So, or for that matter, House of Cards or anything. So the most exciting stuff is happening on television right now, right? You can actually go for a drink with Emma Stone, and you can make, then come out of it and say, wow, I'm going to make a show, right?
Everyone can.
Why is it that even the creative, I mean, even the actors are looking at, they're not shying away from television anymore. I mean, everybody's looking at saying, okay, what do you have to say? Can you say? How can you say it? You know, and if the network wants to back you, then it's great.
And let me respond to the question that you did ask now that I've remembered it. You know, I think there are 2-3 issues here. One is that, you know, let's not kid ourselves. We are living in India and not the United States of America. We're incidentally not having the presidential election that they're having. So maybe there are some things which are pretty much a little bit better here. And
That's a great show.
it's great television. Yeah, that's
Wonderful
right.
show. Yeah.
So, you know, so I think we are fundamentally in a very, very different society, very different country, where television is a lot younger, right? So, I mean, if Star Plus is the #1 channel for a long time, Star Plus started programming in Hindi in the year 2000. So, you know, like it's 16, 17 years of having high quality television of some scale in this country. So we are sort of in our late teens, I guess. So we will mature and figure this out as we go along. Number one. Number two, for a vast majority of our audiences, the number of years of watching is like 1/3 of that. So I think that's a second issue as well, right? And television is expensive to make. Good television, which you just saw, hopefully you think is even more so. And therefore it really needs a business model that really supports that. And so I think some of those compulsions are real. Having said all of those things, I think that these are there are other markets which we should look for as sort of intermediaries between Hollywood and where Hollywood is and where we are. So for example, the Latin American markets, right, where they have telenovelas, which also run for 1 year and a bit more. So I think there is need for and there is room for all kinds of TV shows in our country. We will always have space for dramas that can run for years on end. We are trying our level best to create dramas which have a much tighter storytelling grip and higher quality of actors and far more number of days to be able to try to get to the cinematic quality that you just saw in this
You always
outstanding
had
piece
it.
of
I
work.
mean, you guys had the star bestseller series. I mean, it was fantastic. And some of the biggest directors in India today all started off with the star bestseller. I mean, whether it's Sriram, Imtiaz,
Rajkumar Hirani.
Rajkumar, they all were at the start. So I think that it's very easy for us to say that we are the ones who created the formula, or we are the ones who basically have said that this is the formula, this is the formula that works. But in my opinion, for an audience, I mean, there's an audience today that sat and watched this, right? And it's as far as you can get from what is playing on television today. But it needs to connect, right? I mean, I have connected with the two characters that Carrie showed in True Detective, or that he has shown with. When I watched Hatufam, I was shocked that I was actually moved by the story of two prisoners who are coming back from Palestine, right? I mean, how can that move me? I don't know anything about the relevance. I mean, of that political nuance and everything. But the thing is that you have to connect, right? Somewhere it has to connect, and television has done that. I mean, I grew up on Nukkad and Bunyad and Humlog and Manoranjan and Circus. So we are the ones who are responsible. We need to, if we don't say that, okay, we need to make that change, then we can't blame anybody else.
Kerry, because Gaurav also spoke about the business aspect of it, that somewhere, you're catering to fans and there is a certain amount of business that it needs to make sense. Now, you were an executive producer on season 2 of True Detective, at least your name was there. But again, I've read about how you didn't see the show because you were in Beasts of No Nation before it went on air. Have you seen it now, first of all? Have you seen the season 2?
It's on my queue right now.
So the reason that the show came out so quickly after the first one was because of the same audience that Gaurav speaks of. They loved season 1. They wanted a season 2 and they wanted it right now. And so perhaps, because I've seen it and pretty much everyone hasn't liked it in a sense. Perhaps the reason that it became the show that it became was because there was a deadline to reach. So how do you make sense of that? Had you been not in Ghana, would you have ensured that it would have taken a correct amount of time for it to be written?
Do you mind if I deflect that and ask a different question? Which was, I'm actually quite curious about this, because as you were talking, I was like, how cool would it be to be have an Indian True Detective, like this really good Hindu family, but the guy has like a side girl, whatever, and I think that'd be what I love that you guys are translating these stories.
No, it'll be a great show.
It'd be a cool show.
Yeah, because we have the whole tantric world in
there's
India.
like so much to explore.
Yeah, and you can put it in Bihar or Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, and it'll be a great show. I'll put up my hand and
I'll put it on air. Absolutely. Let's do the deal.
Well, why not? But I was also just thinking, how you're bringing a show from Israel, then to the United States, and now to India, and these sort of universal stories and experiences that are shareable around the world. And I'm speaking completely out of ignorance right now, but has there ever been a show from India that's now traveled abroad and been produced in other countries? And I'm not saying it's a crime that hasn't yet, but I'm very excited to see as you guys are developing more when that starts to happen, because that is really great.
Yeah, so I don't think we've had a really big ticket remake in Hollywood yet, but there is a lot of rights that we have recently sold for content to European and other Asian markets. And about 3 years ago, we used to do a show on Star Plus, which was a take on the Mahabharat, the great Indian epic, which again played out to a lot of audiences across the globe and was one of the top rating shows in markets like Indonesia. So some of the content has traveled, but not a large number, and definitely not something as big as Hatafin.
Okay, HB is not in this room, but you don't want to answer that, that's fine. But still, I mean, because you're doing another television show after this, how do you, when you get into something like that, how do you ensure that beyond what you want to say as a filmmaker, the network or the channel or the streaming platform that it's on, they are not extending your baby in a sense, beyond it that it needs to?
You said earlier that television's a writing medium, and I still believe it. Any art form requires a pilot, and it takes all of your time. So that's probably why you're here, essentially now as well, because there's got to be some consistency there. And you're asking me how I would do it. Like if I'm developing shows through my own company, and I know in terms of the ones that are my babies, the only way to ensure that the quality is consistent is that's my full-time job. And in this case, that couldn't be the case because I had my movie that I wanted to do.
But like we were speaking about Dig, you said that the network and the channel wanted actually another season, but you thought that no, perhaps this is all there is to say to it. Does that really happen?
Well, Dig was from the very beginning a 6-part miniseries, and then the network was gracious enough to expand it to a 10-episode, and because there was, but it was from the very beginning a limited series, and after we were. After we ended, it seemed like we were not renewed because there was some talk about in success we'll continue to other seasons and do like True Detective did an anthology, another crime to be investigated by different FBI agents. But it was from the beginning supposed to be 10 episodes that Tim Crane, my partner, and I wrote and wanted to shoot in Jerusalem, and we knew it was going to be limited.
So another question that I wanted to ask you guys was the fact, because I think you touched on it in the very beginning, that when you talk about adult shows and R-rated shows. Now, one of the reasons why the television industry has evolved and boomed to such an extent internationally is because there is no censorship, at least on cable or the streaming platforms in the United States of America. But in India, the other day I was seeing an English language channel where the word breast was subtitled as chest, because clearly the people who watch English language channels in India are not evolved enough to read breast, so that's the kind of censorship we have in this country. So how do you push boundaries of storytelling in a country like India? And for this part of the panel, and for this part of the panel, the question would be, is censorship, the freedom that this medium allows, is that one of the biggest reasons why television is booming so much? So but first, if you guys want to answer that.
I don't have an answer to that. My answer is watch episode 4 of POW.
Where they fondle a chest.
Just watch episode 4. I mean, I guess you have to somewhere or the other you need to self-censor. I mean, I don't understand about the chest, and because we are not allowed to say beef on television, right? So let's not go there. That's nothing to do with the television networks. That has nothing to do with TV. That has to do with other things that we will not get into right now, because then we'll have to talk about lots of other stuff. So, but you need to understand that what is required and what is not required. I had a long meeting with the SNP, which is Standard and Practices. Am I getting it right? Team at Star before we got into the show, because I said, because a lot of Hatu film is about PTSD and what they're going through, and what these two POWs.
Homeland, for that matter, had it was such an important part of Homeland season 1.
No,
when Brody
similarly,
had to have
it's a
sex.
very big important part over here also, right? I mean, so what do you need to do? And they were they said, listen, you have a guy smoking, just make sure you put the statutory warning, which are going to be great, as long they didn't tell you don't have the smoking, make sure that some person says it's bad to smoke, which I'm okay with. It is bad to smoke. But if I want the character, after 17 years, he comes back home, he waits for his children and his wife to go, and the first thing he does, he looks for a cigarette. It was a very important scene that the writers had written for the show. And I felt that is very important. But dealing with the CBFC in India, I went to them and said, I'm going to have this scene, how are you going to do it? They said, do it. It's fine. It's very important. It's relevant. So what is relevant, you should fight for. You should very much fight for and say that this is what I want to do. But I mean, you don't need to put a girl in a bikini because she's just answering the phone, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. So I think that you need to know what you want to do.
I think we are in a very interesting space with television in our country, because one of the big differences is that we do not have a censor board, right? And thank God for that. And we have the BCCC, where any of our viewers can go and complain if they find something objectionable. Therefore, all the controls that we have are internal, and therefore it is filmmakers, storytellers like Nikhil, his partners on the executive side, people like me. We sit down and have a conversation and say what's the right thing to do, what's the boundary that we want to push, and why. And if we have a good enough logic from a storytelling perspective, we'd want to go ahead and push for that. I'll give you 2 examples. As we entered the last election cycle in our country, we were airing the 2nd season of Satyamev Jayate. And just before the country went to vote, we put out the list of all the criminal candidates that every big political party was putting out there. So in a normal construct, for a television channel and for an entertainment television channel, this would be like a huge deal. Right? We did it, and I'm here telling you this tale. Second, right, we did a depiction of the Mahabharata, and in that, in the traditional scene where Draupadi is insulted and disrobed, we showed that the robes actually fall off of all the great gurus and the pillars of the Hastinapur court. So in reality, who got disrobed? Drona got disrobed, and Bhishma got disrobed, and Dhritarashtra got disrobed, and Vidur got disrobed. So I think these are boundaries that creative people, storytellers are pushing all the time. So this debate is a good debate to have, and there is leeway and scope for really pushing the envelope, and our viewers are ready for it, and we'll keep wanting to do that, and we'll do that hopefully in a very responsible way.
Gideon, would you do television if there was censorship?
Well, I don't know what kind of censorship you're talking about, but there are standards and practices in America as well. I mean, we can't say on network television words that people who run for president say. I mean, absolutely, and we can't. There's more leniency toward violence than to sex, and so we all work within the boundaries of what a network can and cannot do. I don't see that as censorship. I see that as the framework. Yeah.
And Carrie, for that matter, would you have done it would never have been done in the way that you did it. But if a network television, a network channel in America would have offered the same thing to you that HBO did, would you still go for it? Given that networks in America do not allow for the kind of freedom that a cable or a streaming platform do.
Maybe I would have done it out of ignorance, only because I didn't know all the rules. But having now worked at HBO and other networks, I realized there's a lot of freedom in working with a cable network that doesn't have commercials, because of the things you can show on screen that would be in conflict if there was a commercial break, and also because of the S&Ps that are different for network television versus cable television. I myself have a terrible propensity to swear, and it ends up in my writing as well. And I think my sweet spot is probably on cable.
But for that matter, because you've spoken about networks, and is there, since you're also a filmmaker, predominantly, do you see is television offering you a little more freedom than what films offer when they go into theaters and they have to be stamped with a certain kind of a censor certificate? Do you actually find that attractive about television?
I don't think my stuff is that extreme. So I was gonna make an example, but then I realized I'm not allowed to talk about it. So I think what I would say is that there are still restrictions in filmmaking as well. So it's not like it's just, you know, it's not the Wild West when you make a movie. You still have to follow a lot of rules, and I think there's a lot of discretion, and I think culture, studio to studio, that allows certain kinds of content. And I think Gideon said it when he said that it's more acceptable to show violence in America than it is to show sexuality, which is a really strange contradiction. And as frightening as sexuality is to many people, it seems, the amount of violence that we consume on television, to me, makes me want to put less violence in my films, even though some people consider my films to be violent. I think it's the topic that's violent, but like in Beasts of No Nation, the 2 or 3 violent scenes that are there are nowhere near as gory as what you might see on an average comic book action film.
Walking Dead, yeah.
But they're just killing. Oh no, wait, they are killing people too. I haven't seen the first episode, so please don't ruin it for me.
Sure. Okay, I'm getting towards the last part of this before we'll open it up for questions from the audience. One of the things that Nikhil, you have said is about how, you know, POW required actors, good actors, you know. But when you think about it, right? Everyone from Purab to Sandhya to Amrita, they are not your television. They're not your traditional television actors. They've not done to perhaps any television, for that matter. And when you think about it, the turning points of the television revolution, whenever it has happened when a big name star has come on board. You know, True Detective, you know, if Matthew McConaughey or Woody Harrelson would not have been in it, would True Detective have become the phenomenon that it did? Would we have actually taken the kind of, the human consciousness that that Tristan Cole was talking about as aggressively as we did when Matthew McConaughey was delivering those lines? So talent should not typically be correlated to storytelling, but somewhere, you know, the big names and stars are, in a sense, isn't it? So that's what I want to ask you. Would you have just worked, if you would have been given the option of working with television, someone from Diya Aur Baatein Hum for that matter, would you have still made POW, and could it have been launched in the way that it is being today?
I don't, as long as the actor can act and say his lines and perform what I want them to do. I don't care whether they've just done television, whether they've done the theatre, or whether they've done only film. These are the guys who I wanted to work with. These are some of the people. Manish Chaudhary, for that matter, somebody that was the first person when I started working with Sudhir Mishra. He was struggling to do a role in Sudhir Mishra's films. Purab is in Airlift, and I've always wanted to work with him. Amrita is somebody, when I saw in Aisha, and I said that, my God, this girl is fantastic. So my choices don't come because somebody tells me that, you know, this person is a very big star on television, or this person is a very big star in film. It's more because you want to work with this person. You think that person is good for the role and correct for the role. And if Gaurav had suggested somebody who they had worked with, I would possibly say, okay, let that person do an audition and let me see.
I did suggest Sandhya Mridhu.
Yes, he did. So I said, let's meet and let's discuss and let's see and let's move from there. I mean, I wanted to work with all these guys, and that's why they're there. So in everything I do, television or film, it's about that.
May I respond to that? You know, I think you've said it again and again, and I think this is something that we must discuss, and I must oppose what you're saying, because you're continuously making a big distinction. You know, it's almost like the caste system, and you know, there are these filmmakers and they're the twice born, and everybody who's done film is like awesome, and you know, TV is this lowbrow thing. You know, it's, I mean, the reality where I see it from is actually fundamentally very, very different, you know. You know, small known fact, which I found out only last week, Purab told me that his career actually started at Channel V. Right, so he is somebody definitely whose work started at Channel V. This is not Sandhya's first show for Star Plus. She's done a show with us earlier. Nikhil, Amrita and I have been in conversation for like over 2 years to try and do a great TV series together. So I think, you know, the reason why we have these people, and this is not Manish's first show either for Star Plus. He was part of Everest for us. So I mean, these are all actors who've done very good quality work with Star in the past, and definitely on Indian television, and that's why we've cast them. And you know, Diyor Bati Hum has some of the finest actors that this country has seen, and therefore it was the most watched show in this country for like half a decade. And you know, and there is a reason why I think you know, this caste system, if anything, should be reversed, because you know, Nikhil mentioned that there have hardly been any movies to watch in the last year and a bit, except Airlift. I think that was pretty cool. But I think you know, the fact remains that if you compare Diyor Bati Hum at its peak, right, one episode of Diyor Bati Hum would be watched more than the entire box office footfall of the biggest movie released in this country ever. So we've done this maths, right? So at its peak, Diyor Bati Hum, or Nagin if you want, is watched by roughly 5 to 6 crore Indians, one episode, right? And that's much more than all of us who went to watch PK in a theater. So that's the scale of television in our country. That is the power of Bharat that all of us in TV serve, right? And I mean, you know, again, this entire classification between TV actors and film actors. Now, let me mention to you the only film actor who really was involved with something game-changing on TV happens to be Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, right? And Mr. Bachchan did KBC with us 15, 16 years ago. But Mr. Bachchan also did a TV series, right, very recently. And he'd be the first to say, you know, pretty much nobody went to watch it, right? So I think, you know, this is why television is a writer's medium. It's a director's medium before it is a marketing medium. So it's not really about, it's never first about the stars. I think, you know, it's always first about the creative person and the story that you want to tell, which is what makes it a very exciting place for talent everywhere in the world.
So never talk down to television again. Okay. Learned your lesson yet?
I started by saying that I admire Ekta Kapoor. I need to have a lot of guts to say that in front of a film audience. But I do. I'm from a television background myself. Nikhil knows we have worked together on a
He
television
really loves
set.
TV. He does. He swears it.
So no, the reason I'm asking only is because, you know, I mean, the fact is that every time something impressive is happening on television, there seems to be a premium given to the kind of star that is attached to it, and that's the reason I asked this question. You know, why is Yudh such a thing? Because I mean, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan did come down to do it. You know, I mean,
I watched Youth not because
I'm
of
saying
Amitabh
down
Bachchan.
only, not as a
Youth
step
because
down,
it was
but
Anurag
like a-
Kashyap. I
Yeah.
did not watch Youth because it was Amitabh Bachchan.
Sure,
It would not make a difference to me whether it was Mr. Bachchan or not. And I don't think
Sure.
that whether Matthew McConaughey was there in True Detective. I mean, of course, he's a very talented actor. But I watched actually True Detective because Woody Harrelson was there in True Detective. And for me, Woody Harrelson is the guy from Cheers, right? Who has done and who then did a lot of path-breaking stuff, which he was, I mean, which possibly could be attributed to a lot of the stuff that he was also doing outside. But you know, Woody Harrelson is that type of actor who is Manish Chaudhary for me, right? Woody Harrelson is that actor who's Manish Chaudhary is the guy who's been there in some of the biggest cult films in this country has made. I mean, whether it's Rocket Singh and I wanted to work with him. I wanted to work with this guy, and he had done Everest, and it had very clearly he could have Gaurav could have told me we've done an Everest with him. Take somebody else, right? We've done an Everest with him. Why do you want to do the TV audiences have seen him in Everest? Why do you? And I said, no, listen, this is he'll be great for this role. Let's just get him and we'll work with him and we'll figure out what to do with his look and change it. And he's phenomenal. You know, he's brilliant. And people have come to me who have seen parts of the show and said, do a spin-off called Vikram. You know, so yeah, I think most people just choose the actor, right?
Okay, so I'll end on a because we have to go for audience questions. I'll just end on a thing that will support television. The fact is
Wow,
that
thank you.
television, the fact is that television is offering a lot of diversity in storytelling that you're traditionally not seeing in film. Whether it is Transparent and Orange is the New Black, which are pretty much, you know, doing so much for the LGBT community outside. And what I loved about this was a Muslim and a Sikh, two minority communities that we have showcased over here. You know,
Really,
so
I just figured it out.
so it's such a it's so amazing that television can actually represent, you know, give voices to the kind of communities that do not find adequate representation. You know, is that a fair thing to say? That is that why I mean, for you and for you and for you, for everyone over here in this panel, is one of the reasons that television is actually attractive to filmmakers is because, you know, that it offers this kind of a leeway.
It's one more thing which is attractive, right? It's not one off. It's one more thing. You can tell your story. You can work with actors which are not who don't determine what your Friday box office is going to be. You can do a long format, so you can actually you can explore graphs and character arcs, and but I mean, then doing a film is also great fun. So I'm just saying that there is nothing. Why are we constantly looking at, you know, this is film and this is television? And I think we need to just,
Let's talk about the theater.
yeah, let's do that, right?
Let's look
I mean,
down at the theater.
I don't watch.
Yeah? Those fuckers.
But the same question goes for you gentlemen as well. You know, is that one of the reasons that you got to talk about Jews and Palestinians, you know, in your show, which is so amazing that you had a show that at least spoke about a very rampant political issue in your region. So is that something that you could have done in the way that you did in Hathu film on the big screen?
Well, if you look at Israeli films coming out of Israel, and there was a renaissance of the film industry in the past 10 years. So yes, you do see that kind of brave stories on television and in filmmaking in Israel, yes. And I think more and more diversity in American television and American film you see now, which is amazing.
Well, True Detective wasn't tremendously diverse. So what I would say about that, though, is at least this last year, one of the more memorable moments of the award season that I saw was when the entire cast of Orange is the New Black was on stage at the SAG Awards. And you see this group of amazing people, beautiful people, and extremely proud people there adored and loved for their work and not sort of marginalized as side characters. You know, I didn't write True Detective, so, you know, I didn't really have the opportunity there to make that more diverse. But I don't know if Orange is the New Black were a film would have had that resonance.
We'll open it up to audience questions now, a couple of questions at least. But I think from what we are understanding from the panel is that, I mean, it's a just to round it up in a sense, it's what we are seeing today in India is hopefully the start of another revolution where there is enough space for everything to exist. You know, the dailies, the weeklies, and our seasonal shows, if I'm not wrong, Gaurav. so yeah, I mean, let's hope that, I mean, let's hope POW is perhaps one of the bigger causes of this revolution, and I'm really rooting for it. Another big round of applause for what we have seen today, which is actually one of the coolest things that I've seen on television in India ever. So a couple of questions from the audiences. Anyone has? Yes, in the
Hi, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Haji Shahnawaz, and my question is to Nikhil Advani, Carrie Kirindroff, and Gaurav Banerjee. You know, as you have individually achieved a lot in your careers and you've become a youth icon now, so means you've achieved a lot, so what's your take on choosing between method and madness, which is more applicable for the youth to follow and achieve their goals in life or do something, and at least in the phase of filmmaking, which is more applicable, method versus madness, you know?
Well, my method has always been madness. So, I mean, and Gaurav can vouch for that. But I have two producers sitting at the back over there; they can vouch for that. Every day, I'm reminded that, you know, you're mad and you should. So I would say that if your method is as mad as possible, it works. And I think that's the one. And you have the ability to be young. I mean, you're talking about youth, right? Make mistakes. It's very important. It's very, very important to make mistakes.
My suggestion would be to, I don't have the same view on drugs that Nikhil has, so I'll give you a slightly different answer. But I think my suggestion would be that you should, figure out what is it that you have the special knack of madness for. So it's, I think madness in general versus madness of a particular kind. And if you find it like the way that Nikhil did, you'd be fine.
Just to, I'll clarify. So are you asking, like, in terms of advice, whether you should be more method or mad?
You should go to film school, learn it, or just do it practically by assisting, like, which is more applicable for filmmakers.
I slept my way to the top, so that's what I would do. So I guess madness.
Yeah, I suppose the creative spark, right, has to come through some form of a bit of repression, and then, velocity and expression. And I think you learn the method along the way, but it's got to start from madness.
Seriously, now I'll answer. I think, for me at least, and probably for many people here, writing is the hardest thing to do. The creating from nothing is the hardest thing to do. And if it's burning in you, you will do it. You don't need to think about how or why, or you just sit your ass down and start writing and make something.
रुक यार मैं चैन बंद करके आएगा तो विजुअल मारना हुआ तो आगे चल चल छाप शमिका शक्ति चश्मा लगा के शमिका शक्ति छाप आगे चल थोड़ा और आगे शमिका शक्ति समीका दिख रही उधर समीका दिवाली में दिख रही इसको जूम दिख रहा नहीं रिफ्रेशन नहीं दिख रहा तो फिर क्या कर सकते हैं कुछ नहीं कर सकते शिल्पा का भी तो नहीं मिलेगा इसके आगे आप जाएंगे नहीं शिल्पा कांच कर रहा था शिल्पा का कांच कर रहा था यही शॉट और तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते बस कुछ दिख नहीं जाना चाहेंगे 7 नवंबर को आपका ये बंदी युद्ध के आपका ये आ रहा है, क्या कहना चाहेंगे आप, कितने एक्साइटेड हैं आप इस शो को?
मैं काफ़ी एक्साइटेड हूँ। मैं एक्चुअली एक्साइटेड हूँ कि जियो मामी मुंबई फिल्म फेस्टिवल में एक टेलीविज़न शो को इस तरह से वर्ल्ड प्रीमियर उन्होंने समझा कि लायक है कि वो वर्ल्ड प्रीमियर हो सके। लोग कैरी फुकुनागा जो मैं उनके शोज़ देखता हूँ, मैं उनको बहुत चाहिदा है। जो गिडियन रैफ जो है, जो इज़राइल से आए हैं, जो LA से आए मिलने के लिए और शो देखने के लिए, उनके सामने ये शो का प्रीमियर मिला। मैं मतलब इट्स अ वेरी बिग डे फॉर मी एंड वेरी बिग डे फॉर द शो।
लेकिन एक चीज़ है,
जी
हमने वेस्ट में, यूरोप में
जी।
हर तरफ ये देखा है कि टीवी की जो दुनिया का रेवोल्यूशन है वो बहुत पहले आ चुका है। भारत में टीवी का रेवोल्यूशन आया, लेकिन वो उस असर के साथ नहीं आया जो कंटेंट ड्रिवन चीज़ें कही जाती हैं। क्या मानते हैं कि
वो मेरे ख्याल से वो उसका जो आउट ब्लेम जो है वो हम खुद लेना चाहिए, हमें खुद लेना चाहिए। बिकॉज वी एज फिल्म मेकर्स ने किसी तरह से हम लोग ने एक स्नॉबरी दिखाई है कि हम फिल्म बनाते हैं, हम टीवी नहीं बनाते। वो बदलना चाहिए, क्योंकि आज सबसे बड़े जो शोज़ है, सबसे बड़े जो स्टोरीज़ है, जिनको हमारे जिनको हमें पसंद आते हैं, वो हम iPad पे देखते हैं, हम अपने फ़ोन्स पे देखते हैं। तो ये जो एक नोशन है कि यार मैं बड़े स्क्रीन, बड़े पैमाने का मैं फिल्म मेकर हूँ, मैं टेलीविज़न नहीं बनाता हूँ, वो चेंज होने चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से, और हम लोगों को करना चाहिए। सईद मिर्ज़ा, कुंदन शाह, सुधीर मिश्रा, आप उनके नाम लीजिए ना, जिन्होंने मतलब इतने कमाल के शोज़ बनाए, नुक्कड़, सर्कस, मनोरंजन, वाकले की दुनिया, भारत एक खोज, बुनियाद, रमेश सिप्पी जिन्होंने शोले बनाई थी, उन्होंने बुनियाद बनाई है। तो वो जो स्नॉबरी है वो हमें छोड़ना चाहिए। हम ये भी करते हैं कि हम चैनल को ब्लेम करते हैं कि उनको सिर्फ यही चाहिए। नहीं, मैं एक ज़िंदा मतलब मैं एक मिसाल हूँ, जहाँ पे मैंने जाके चैनल को कहा कि मुझे सिर्फ ऐसी शो बनाना है और ऐसे ही बनाएंगे, और जो आपको चाहिए वो हम लोग डाल देंगे अंदर, जो आपको इमोशनल कंटेंट चाहिए वो हम लोग डाल देंगे, पर शो ऐसे बनेंगे। वी शुड डू दैट। और if a channel like Star is allowing you to do that, that's the biggest advantage.
अच्छा, जो सिनेमा है आप उससे भी जुड़े रहे हैं,
जी
आप
जी।
क्या सबसे ज़्यादा एडवांटेज है इस मीडिया का अपनी कहानी कहने?
नहीं, एडवांटेज तो है नहीं। अलग फॉर्मेट है, जहाँ पे सिनेमा में, जहाँ पे स्टोरी में, जहाँ पे फिल्म्स में आपको एक कहानी 2 घंटे में बताना पड़ता है। यहाँ पे आप 100 एपिसोड ले सकते हो। तो एक बहुत ही अलग फॉर्मेट है। हर कैरेक्टर का जो बिल्डअप है, जो ग्राफ है, जो चेंजेस है, वो आप एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं। सिनेमा में, फिल्म में वो होता नहीं है। काफ़ी टाइम पे एक यूनिडायमेंशनल वर्जन आती है, बट इट इज़ काफ़ी फिल्म्स है जो आपको मतलब भौका देती है ना। पिंक जैसी फिल्म्स, नीरजा जैसी फिल्म, हालांकि हमने इससे खुद प्रोड्यूस किया है लिफ्ट, जब एक कहानी आपको पुल करती है, वो कहानी के पीछे आपको जाना चाहिए, आपको देखना चाहिए वो कहानी को एक सही तरह से उसे दिखाना। आपको क्या उसकी क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है, फिल्म या टीवी?
बिजनेस ऑफ वॉर
जी
जो है,
जी
एक अलग दुनिया में जो मेकर्स हैं वो लेके गए।
जी।
भारत के लिहाज से क्या चेंजेस इसमें भारतीय दर्शकों को?
मतलब क्योंकि प्रिजनर्स ऑफ वो हाथू फिल्म जो है वो इज़राइल और पैलेस्टाइन की कहानी है। यहाँ पे हम लोग ने इंडिया और पाकिस्तान की कहानी बनाई है, और जो कारगिल में हुआ था 1999 में, वहाँ से मतलब वो उसे एक इवेंट को लेके, एक हादसा को लेके हम लोग 17 ईयर्स आगे आ जाते हैं प्रेजेंट डे पे। तो जहाँ पे आपको लगता है कि 2 प्रिजनर्स वो वापस आए, वहाँ पे कहानी ख़त्म होनी चाहिए। वो कहानी ख़त्म नहीं होती, वहाँ से कहानी शुरू होती है, क्योंकि आपको लगता है कि अब तो वापस आ गए, अभी तो सब कुछ ठीक हो गया। नहीं, उनकी ज़िंदगी के में क्या अभी परिवर्तन आने वाले हैं, उनके सारे जो फैमिलीज़ में उनको कैसे एडजस्ट करना पड़ेगा, हाउ आर दे गोइंग टू डील विद द फैक्ट कि ये 2 लोग वापस आ गए हैं, वो सब अभी उसकी कहानी है बंदी युद्ध के प्रिजनर्स में।
चलिए, एक चीज़ और है कि आप बहुत सारे जो रियल इवेंट्स हैं उनको बहुत फॉलो करते हैं, उन पर बहुत ज़्यादा ऑब्जर्वेशन आपका होता है। कौन सी ऐसी और चीज़ें हैं, ऐसे सब्जेक्ट्स हैं जिनको निखिल आडवाणी छूना चाहते हैं?
जी मैं इस साल ही मैं गया था गोल्डन टेम्पल देखने के लिए। मुझे ये कमाल का लगा कि यार ये यहाँ पे ऑपरेशन ब्लू स्टार हुआ था। मैं उस पर रिसर्च करना चाहूँगा, उस पर फिल्म बनाना चाहूँगा। मेरी नेक्स्ट फिल्म जो है वो बाटला हाउस पे है, जो एक बहुत बड़ी पुलिस एनकाउंटर दिल्ली में हुई थी, उसके बारे में है, जो मैं जिसका प्रेपरेशन चल रहा है, जो मैं मार्च अप्रैल में शुरू करूँगा वो फिल्म। तो मुझे लगता है कि मैंने काफ़ी हाउ डू आई पुट इट, कोशिश की कि मैं एक स्लॉट में नहीं फिट हो जाऊं, मैं अलग अलग चीज़ ट्राई करूं। पर अभी मुझे समझ में आया कि मुझे ये बहुत पसंद है, मैं ठीक से कर सकता हूं। आप लोगों को पसंद आता है, आप लोग कहते नहीं कि डब्बा है, रबिश है, आप लोग कुछ। तो मैं ये दो सब्जेक्ट्स पे अभी काम कर रहा हूँ। मेरी प्रोडक्शन जो है वो लगी हुई है, 3 दूसरे डायरेक्टर्स को हम लोग लॉन्च करने वाले हैं अगले साल। तो वो अभी देखते हैं क्या क्या बनती है।
एक चीज़ और है कि हाल फिलहाल हर दिन एक नई फिल्म ट्रेलर के साथ आती है। निखिल आडवाणी को हाल फिलहाल किसी फिल्म का ट्रेलर या किसी फिल्म पे उनकी निगाहें बहुत हैं, देखने के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा एक्साइट कौन सी
मतलब मैं तो अगले हफ्ते तो ये मुश्किल देखने वाला हूँ, वो तो विदाउट फेल तो है। पर मैंने इस हफ्ते पिछले हफ्ते एक फिल्म देखी का ट्रेलर देखा, दंगल, जो मुझे लगता है कि इट विल बी अ क्राइम टू मिस दैट फिल्म। क्योंकि आमिर खान ने जो किया है, जो दो लड़कियों ने किया, जो स्टोरी जो है जिस तरह से बना है, मुझे लगता है कि ये फिर से लगान होने वाली है।
आज बिमल रॉय पे भी बातचीत
जी
होने वाली है। आपकी क्या
बिमल रॉय मेरे लिए एक कंप्लीट फिल्म मेकर है। मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ कि उनको स्लॉट नहीं किया जा सकता, क्योंकि जिस किस्म की उन्होंने फिल्म बनाई है, मतलब फ्रॉम देवदास टू मधुमती टू और द इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग और बिमल रॉय मेरे लिए ये है कि मतलब उनके जो टीम थी, जिनके साथ वो काम करते थे, ऋषि दा एंड गुलजार साहब और बासु भट्टाचार्य, तो उनके सारे असिस्टेंट्स फिल्म मेकर्स बन गए। तो वो एक ऑर्डिनरी मैन नहीं कर सकते हैं, वो एक कमाल के फिल्म मेकर से ही सही होता है। दैट इज समथिंग दैट आई रियली चेरिश अबाउट हिम एज अ फिल्म मेकर। Well, Bazaar is into rewrite. We have to rewrite it because things have happened in the stock market, which made me realize कि उसको we have to turn it around. We need to revisit the characters, revisit the story. So that's what we are doing right now. Yeah? Thank you.
अरे
थोड़ा सा पीछे जाइए।
Vikas,
आप हम
Vikas?
Can I help you?
my stuff is just lying on that chair. Thanks. Yeah. बहुत रोमांचक था। जैसे सारे सेशंस होते हैं, पूरा डिस्कशन तो हो नहीं पाया, लेकिन ऐसे एक गंभीर और एक गहरे सब्जेक्ट पे 1 घंटे में क्या क्या डिस्कस हो सकता है। लेकिन जितना डिस्कस हुआ है वो काफ़ी क्या कहते हैं, थॉट प्रोवोकिंग था।
एक चीज़ और है राहुल कि जिस तरह से सिनेमा में हर दौर में देखा गया है कि हम एक ब्लेम करते रहते हैं कि इस दौर में इस तरह की फिल्में नहीं बनी, इस दौर में इस तरह की, लेकिन मानते हैं कि हर दौर में विमेन को लेकर जिस तरह की रेवोल्यूशनरी फिल्में बनती रही हैं, वो कहीं ना कहीं सिनेमा में उन पर बात करने की अब ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है।
मैं समझता हूँ कि हर वक्त का एक रिस्पॉन्स होता है, और मेरे ख्याल से इस पर्टिकुलर एज में जो अवेयरनेस बढ़ा है अबाउट जेंडर इनजस्टिस, अबाउट जेंडर वायलेंस, उस अवेयरनेस के मुताबिक यस डेफिनेटली वी नीड मोर फिल्म्स इन दिस काइंड।
चलिए हाल फिलहाल हम देख रहे हैं कि चाहे कहानी हो चाहे नीरजा हो, जिस तरह की फिल्में मेन स्ट्रीम में भी इस तरह की फिल्में आ रही हैं, तो मानते हैं कि अच्छा दौर है, ऐसा वक्त है कि केवल न्यू एज सिनेमा या बाकी
Yes,
जगहों पे
I think हम फिल्म मेकर्स आर रिएक्टिंग टू व्हाट सोसाइटी इज टेलिंग अस. तो चाहे पाँच हो या चाहे नीरजा हो, definitely there's more funding of women centric films.
राहुल बोस.
Anybody else? बहुत से चाहे कोंकणा सेन शर्मा हो या शबाना आज़मी जी हो या आजकल हम देखते हैं राधिका आप्टे है, या बहुत साल पहले जो हमने उनसे उनके फिल्म्स देखे, उनके साथ काम भी किया है, वाहिदा रहमान जी. आई थिंक there are some actresses who've done some roles in some films where they have stood out for their strength, and so you should I celebrate all of them. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Ma'am, start from you. Center.
सर अब इधर देखिए, यो
Stiletto. Still, Keshav.
Hey, हटना.
That's it. Thank you. Please come.
Hello, mic check. Jaji, one quick bite. Jaji, one quick bite.
Ma'am, I don't mind.
back. After the back.